Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast. This is episode 85, I think. Is it, James? Yes, it's 85. I can never remember. James keeps track of all that. He keeps score. So yeah, we're continuing our run of guests this week. Our run of fantastic guests, and we've got a cracking one lined up in a minute. But before we get there, I will say hello and introduce you to the usual suspects. Let's go to James first because his internet's working. How are you doing, James?
Very good, thank you. Very, very good. This is I'm looking forward to this today because it's going to be like catching up with an old friend, which is lovely. And I told a few people in the gym, Nikki, who Pom knows. Giving it away. Nikki, who knows our guest, and Steph, and I said who was on today, and then Nikki said, "Oh, I love him so much. He's so lovely." So I said, "Oh, well, I'll say hello." So yeah, that's our guest today. I'm looking forward to this.
You've got a little insight into who it is then. I don't say lovely, I say it's sickening. It's bloody sickening, to be honest. And we'll go on about that in a minute anyway. Right. Paul, anyway, how are you doing?
Well, I'm fine. I'm not going to go into any details of my day. I don't need to.
You don't want to depress everyone, no?
I know.
I think we should start a new podcast like Grumpy Middle-Aged Men or something like that.
Yeah.
No. I've got a great idea, Paul. What you should do is tell everyone exactly how your day's gone in a very, very short sentence, and it'll make everyone feel better because it's not them.
Well, my elevator pitch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No.
You think it's bad for you? Here's how bad it could be.
Well, often it's my own fault. So
I know. Yeah. Oh well, there you go. At least you're here. So that's good.
At least, yeah. The pity party, basically.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on from the pity party. He's frozen again. Anyway. Yeah. So this guest I've known. Well, it's Mr. Pom Tutt is the guy who we have on today. I've known Pom for about 7 years or something. I think I met you at Strength Matters first. I can't remember. It was a while ago. But so Pom knows, he knows a lot of people in the industry and stuff like that. He owns a space in Telford. Called Human Method. And he also runs like a branding business as well. He did my branding for me for my stuff, so that was pretty cool. And then if you're watching on camera, if you're watching on YouTube, right? I met Pom in January it was Claire Booth's birthday, and we went out for that. And I met him there, and he turned up dressed exactly how he is now, right? Now Pom gets away with it. If I was dressed like that, right? I mean, I reckon my mates would have some sort of intervention. And they'd be like, "You feeling all right, mate?" But Pom gets away with it because he's just like one of the coolest men in the world. So anyway, how are you doing, Pom?
I'm really good, thanks, mate.
After that intro.
I got to remind you how cold it is in here. Do you know what I mean? So I've got to be fleeced up.
Fleeced up, yeah. That's is that a new term?
And if you're going to wear a fleece, you might as well make it colourful.
Yeah.
Right?
I haven't got the confidence, mate. Honestly, I'm serious about that. I would not be able to carry that off. I'd walk around thinking that I look ridiculous. But
and you would look ridiculous.
And I would look ridiculous as well. Exactly. Like I said, people would be like, "What the hell are you wearing?" But there you go. I've talked about this before, actually, about the perception of what you think, and you can be walking down the street thinking everyone's looking at you when they're not, because nobody cares. But you can be walking anyway. This is a little aside. You can be walking down the street one day thinking everyone's looking at you and thinking, "Oh, I must look great," and being confident. And then you can be walking down the same street with the same people wearing the same clothes and everyone's looking at you thinking like, "Why is everyone looking at me?" and being paranoid about it. Depends on your mindset, doesn't it? Anyway, we'll move on from that. So Pom, if you want to give us, I'll do the James thing and say, right, so you're of a certain age. tell us about your life in 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Wow.
So you used to be like, you used to be a rugby player, didn't you, and all that sort of stuff. So just like basically how you've got to where you are now.
Yeah, sure. So I kind of got into the fitness industry through sport. Initially at college, I was doing art, PE, and all the usual stuff. Kind of that was my two things, and they were completely separate at the time. And it was either going to be down art, graphics, that type of way, or sport. And kind of sport chose me at a fairly early age, where I got picked to play for some decent clubs at kind of semi-pro level, and this is like the age of like 15, playing rugby league, which is like a northern sport. I'm down in the Midlands where we don't really play any of these games, and I found myself at 16 kind of learning to play this sport and playing at probably the highest level of my life in that moment. And so that was a real challenge, which brought on so many things that at the time I didn't really understand them, but being able to step away from it and look at it, it was a real eye-opener for me, and something that gave me a unique perspective on the game on a micro level, but just in terms of like the coaching later on in life, it's really kind of shaped the way I think and why I think the way I think and why I do the things that I do. And one of those things was the fact that I was playing this sport that I was learning whilst playing at the highest level. So, you've got coaches shouting at you on the sideline, asking you to do certain things, and you're not understanding why. Yeah. And it was a real struggle that first season. And what basically happened was that they asked me to kind of go and play a season of amateur when that season was over, just get more experience. And bear in mind, I played a whole season of kind of what you'd call kind of professional rugby. I've gone to an amateur club, and one of the first things the coach asked me was, what position do you play? And I said, I play on the wing. And he said, well, what side of winger are you? I went, what do you mean? I'll play wherever you want, left, right, whatever. He goes, yeah, no, but what side of winger are you? I was like, yeah, mate, left or right, anything. In fact, put me full back. I don't really care. Just give me the ball and I'll do a job for you. And he's like, right, run at that tackle bag and sidestep it for me. So I ran it, sidestepped it, and he goes, right, you're a left-handed winger. And yeah. I've been playing this game I've been playing it for a long time. I was playing rugby since I was 11. Played rugby league kind of for one season when I was 13, 14. And then I got reintroduced to rugby league again at 16 at the club that I supported, was the Warrington Wolves. So that was amazing and daunting all at the same time. But during that whole year, none of those conversations happened. I went to Oral St James, which is an amateur club locally. And the coach there, Gary Shaw, asked me to do this thing. And he was like, yeah, you're a left-handed winger. And I just went, why has no one told me this? Right? So that whole season was him nurturing me, asking me questions, teaching me all these things that I wasn't being taught through the general coaching that I was getting. And
was he teaching you, or was he asking you the questions to draw out of you? Because you run at that bag and then you do the thing, and then he's like, okay, you've answered his question and your own question as well.
Absolutely. It was my first real experience of like really good coaching, and in sport, I'd call it like player management, right? But these perspectives that I was getting, and I was like, wow, like these things just come naturally to these guys who've been playing it since they were like 4, 5, 6, and these things they just do. But when you come into something brand new, you don't understand it. The level at which you have to explain what this thing is and how to do it and why it's important was just a game changer for me. So when I transitioned into fitness, that was really prevalent in my mind, because I was now coaching people with the perspective that most PTs at that age, 18, 19, 20 years old, don't have, which is this person knows absolutely nothing. So I really need to understand them first and be able to give them what they need by asking the right questions. So I was kind of doing these things by accident as well. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I just went off of my experiences. So I went from kind of the rugby to the fitness stuff, which took me into, coaching. Then I went a step further and started coaching coaches, doing like level 3 PT courses and things like that, teaching on them. And then that kind of led into doing more kind of mentoring type things with other PTs. Nowadays, I kind of work with visionary coaches who I would say struggle to find their place in the industry. They're kind of, they're stuck, they're frustrated because they don't really understand kind of where they fit. And they have these thoughts and these beliefs, but the fitness industry is putting out the complete opposite things. So they feel pressured to put out whatever's going out by these people who are in the industry, and their message gets lost. And so like my kind of, what I do now really is I help these coaches kind of find their way, you know, and navigate that space of kind of uncertainty. And this is a space where I kind of occupy quite a lot, actually. It's my kind of world. It's that kind of space in between. I've never really been full on into like one thing. I've always been in this transition. And that transition for me is that kind of space of growth. You know, it's like, this is who I am. This is who I want to be. And I've always wanted to step into that next thing before I finish the first thing. And sorry about that. And one of the issues that I've kind of come up against is that I always thought that was an issue. I thought it was a problem that I was kind of moving forward, and I never kind of finished the thing before. But for me, it's been kind of being okay with being in that transition phase, that kind of growth phase, and not understanding exactly where I fit, because those things kind of come about by just taking the steps, doing it, and figuring out as you go. And I've always been after that kind of, what is this? You know, this definite answer. And it's almost like that whole, you know, the goal type thing, you know, I want to hit that goal. And unless I hit that goal, I haven't achieved it. Well, it's actually the journey during that thing. And I find that it's not that I never have anything. It's never that I don't hit that goal. It's just that because I'm so focused on the process, by the time I get to that goal, that's not the goal anymore. The next thing is. Yeah. So I used to see this thing of being like, you know, I was a rugby player, I was in fitness, and then I went to branding, which seemed completely different. But actually, it wasn't at all. It was just the next thing for me, because when I went all the way back to the start of my story, you know, my kind of my fork in the road was sport and some kind of design work, art, design, expression, you know, that kind of stuff. And that's kind of what I'm bringing into this. And when I do look back through my whole story, that expression was in everything that I did. It was in my rugby. Yeah. It was in the way I coached, and that goes for everyone. You know, they all have that within them, but they probably wouldn't identify that as being a thing that they have.
Well, I mean, you obviously did my. I'll ask you a question in a second, but you obviously did my branding for us, and we realized together that my dad he did marquetry, which is like, you know, pictures with wood veneers, and he did a marquetry swallow for our living room like 40 years ago, and that's now my logo, because it's been with me for 40 years and I didn't even realize. And it's the bird of freedom and freedom through movement and all of this sort of, it just meant everything, and it all ties in. It was amazing. And I didn't even realize it. That's been in my mum's house now, but like in that living room for 40 years, and I didn't even like. It's meant that much, and I didn't realize. But anyway, so that was great. So Pom brought that out in me. But yeah, so that's the question. How do you go around bringing out of people their identity? So this will be good for listeners who are looking for coaches who aren't quite sure, you know, because they might want to get fitter, stronger, and healthier, but they don't know what sort of method they want to use, how they're going to do it. There's lots of different ways of doing it. There's lots of gyms out there. There's lots of things, and there's lots of things on social media saying you should do it this way and you shouldn't do it that way. So how do you get people to find their individuality? Because obviously everyone is individual, right? And everyone can offer something different. So how do you draw that out of the people who you work with?
So I think a lot of my work is about expressing yourself authentically, is what I would say. Yeah. And the reason why it's that is because for everything that I did in my past, rugby's a prime example of that. I was never really able to express myself authentically because I didn't believe in myself. And it's probably one of the reasons that I didn't do as well back then as I possibly could have. So that kind of negative talk that we have within our own mind is the thing that holds us back. And when we come to do something like start a business and become a personal trainer and say, right, this is what I do, this is what I do it for, and really express yourself, what happens is we change our voice, the voice that me and you will have a conversation about. And then when I'm on camera, the things I talk about, because I have to say certain buzzwords, is completely different. And my kind of role is to kind of like speak to your heart and get you to speak from your heart to me and try and get that kind of conversation. And it always is. And it was with me and you, Pete. It was just, let's just start and let's just talk about these things. I'll ask you a few questions. And if we're not quite there, we'll ask a slightly deeper question and try and get to the core of it. And we're really talking about who you are, who you've been as a person. And that's ultimately what it is, because what we do is we know who we are. We don't really express that. You know, we try and portray ourselves as this other thing that we think people want. And that's the kind of, I think that's the disconnect between people being stuck, because nothing connects when you're trying to be something you're not, right?
Yeah.
And that's not people being fake. It's just doing things that they think they should do, or sometimes, in some cases, being told what they should do. You know, you join a coaching course, or some people out there who are potentially mentors or coaches will say, right, this is my program. This is what we do. This is step one. Do this, do this, do this. And that just doesn't connect with everyone. And and what happens is, because we don't believe in ourselves, we think, oh, that's my fault. I knew I was rubbish. That's why I can't complete it. Rather than actually challenging the coach and saying, hold on, you know, I've paid a lot of money for this and you promised me X, Y, and Z, but I'm stuck at A, right?
Yeah.
And it's their job to get you from where you are to where you want to be. But because we doubt ourselves, we instantly think to ourselves, oh, this is me. I've always been this way. I've never been able to do this. So they just stay quiet and they move on to the next course or the next coach or the next course.
Yeah.
And actually, no one actually takes a step back and just sits down for a second, take a breath and just go, right, what do I want? And the person isn't probably going to do that. It'd probably take a coach to come in and ask those questions. And so what I would say is that asking those kind of human level questions of who are you? You know, who have you always been? Tell me a story about a time where, you know, you felt this or did this. And before you know it, like me and you, Pete, we started talking about your dad and all this kind of stuff, which, you know, loads of stuff came out. You know, all this stuff. And it was funny because as we were doing it, you were laughing because you were saying, I know all this.
Yeah,
You know, I know this.
yeah.
I know that. But it was taking all that stuff that we already know and packaging it up and taking away all the crap, if you will, and just bringing it down to the core of it and going, right, this is who you are. This is what you do. This is what you do best. And now that's it. And the initial feeling is that can't be it, because it's not enough. And we feel that way because it's what we do authentically. We do it naturally. Like, the reason why people connect and the reason why people like other people is because they have something about them. And the way they talk, the way they, you know, your uniqueness might be the fact that you explain things through jokes, you know, and you're very kind of just laid back. That is your thing. But no one would ever think to market the fact that you're a funny guy, right? But
Yeah.
as soon as you dive into that, that's when the magic happens.
This is interesting because, like, the conversations, but honestly, we were on, we were talking over Zoom, weren't we, when we were doing this? We were on the like, I'd be saying to Sean, because this was over lockdown as well, wasn't it? I'd be saying to Sean, I've got to go and talk to Pom. She was like, right, I'll see you in about 4 hours then, because we'd just be on literally, honestly, for 4 hours, not talking as well, just thinking. A lot of it was you just sitting there not even looking at the screen, just sitting like this, and I'm like, oh, right, okay, I've got to think about this. And this has just reminded me of the Dave Whitley podcast, because I was going to say, this is really hard to do, like, think deeply about yourself and everything, but actually it's not, because Dave Whitley would say, don't say that, because that makes it hard, because you think that. It isn't hard to do. You've just got to think about it deeply.
Yeah.
And which isn't hard to do, but it's something that needs doing. And you were very good at getting that out. And like you say, you condense it all down to here's a few values that you hold dear to yourself. You hold dear in your life, which aren't just the normal values that everybody probably should, the ones that you actually do. And here's like a statement you can use for an elevator pitch and all of that, even though you're not like trying to hard sell anything and all of that, but it's just like, it is just you all in one package. And I even run a lot of it past Sean as well. And she was like, yes, that's you. No, that's not such you and all that, because what you were just saying there as well about connecting with people and all of that, people can see when you're being false as well, can't they? They can see straight through it, especially the people you're closest to. And they're like, what are you doing that for? And it's like, because I think I should. And they're like, that's not you though. You know, but not everyone has that conversation. So it helps out with all that as well. So like I was saying to the listeners, it helps out with finding genuine coaches who are there to want to help. And you will see straight through it if they don't. And you'll connect with people who do.
Absolutely. We're talking about branding, but and businesses and stuff, but it goes for health as well, right?
Yeah. No, this is what I mean.
It's universal. It's, you know, whatever your goal is. In fact, I had a conversation yesterday. I got a missed call, and this woman, I called her back, and she answered. I said, "Hey, I just had a missed call," and she said, "Yeah. Basically, my son's had an accident a few years ago, and you know he struggles with kind of movement and things. Is this something that you would do?" And instantly, my thought was, "Oh, genuinely, I'm not sure." Right. Whereas in the past, I probably would have gone, "Yeah, I can do that for you," you know, because potentially it's another client, which means it's more money and all the rest of it. But my thought process now is, "Oh, you know what? I don't know, but let's go and have a conversation, right?"
Yeah.
And what we'll do is, and that the whole purpose of that conversation isn't to try and sell you into my place and my training package. It's actually to find out what the issue is, what you need, and whether this is for you. So, and if it's not, and if I can't help, if this is beyond my kind of remit, then let's together figure out what it is that you want and need, and let's find someone who can help you, you know. And I think it's our job as coaches to make sure that is part of our process, which is, it's not just, "Oh, I don't do that, sorry," click, and the phone goes down. It's actually, "Hey, yeah, come down, let's have a chat, and let's see what it is you're after." And you know, we all know people in the industry, and we know enough people to be able to go, "All right, this isn't my thing, but I know a person who's perfect for this." You know,
I mean, there's when you rarely in life sit down and come up with your own personal brand, do you? I mean, you do it for a business. You sit there and you have a think about what you want to achieve, who your kind of customer is, things like that, what your ethos is. This often rarely happens as an individual, does it? You don't really sit down at the age of 16 and say, "Right, now I've finished secondary school, I'm going to be this kind of person. I'm going to target these kind of friends. And I'm going to be doing this, that, and the other." You never really do that. And it's actually quite a useful thing to do when you're running a business, isn't it? That you,
it really is.
Because you are kind of, to give you run it, you're very much ingrained in what that business is. So
yeah.
Sometimes I think you do it, but you do it unconsciously. Like, as in through your life, you'll change who you are and how you react and all of that, depending on jobs and university and school and different friendship groups and stuff like that. But you do it subconsciously and kind of mold into whatever the group collective is, rather than being an individual sort of
I suppose
thing.
Working with a coach, whether it's a business coach or a fitness coach or even a counselor or people like that, is to bring your awareness to it, because like you say, you're probably doing it unconsciously, aren't you? You're
Absolutely.
Naturally.
Well, the thing is, we like you said, Pete, we mold to people, and what we find is then that we don't actually have an opinion then. You know, my opinion is just your opinion when I'm talking to you, but when I'm talking to somebody else, my opinion is their opinion, because I want to fit in. And as humans, that's what we want. We just want to fit in. And actually, that's the issue, is that everyone wants to try and fit into, like in this case, like the fitness industry, which means we need to talk about calorie deficit, and we need to talk about all these other things that, yes, they matter down the line and depend on what you're doing. But for someone who is in a hole, their only purpose is to try and get out of that hole, and they're not going to get out of that hole through a calorie deficit. Do you know what I mean? That they need to understand some deeper things that are going on of why they got into that hole, and actually the next step of getting out of that hole, right? And so understanding yourself first and foremost is key to everything. I mean, I've always thought about this stuff. I've been a very kind of deep thinker. It's probably one of my issues that I think too much about things. And this is why I help procrastinators and overthinkers, because I am one. I have been one my whole life. So, you know, I'm working my way out of that. So I'm the perfect person for those people who are kind of finding them stuck and not really sure where to go. But it's really important that we understand that the more we figure out about ourselves, the better connected we're going to be to whatever business we're going to do. And coming back to your point, in terms of we always get a business brand, but we never think about personal branding. Well, I think it has to happen in that order of personal brand then business brand. And I'm kind of living this at the moment, where if you look at any of my content, it's all Pom Tutt. And I have products and I have services, and people are coming to me and asking questions, and I'm working with people, but I don't have a website. The last time I posted on my Human Method page was like last year, because I wasn't really sure where I was going with it. And so people don't know that, and they don't care about that. But the first thing we do when we start a business is we go, right, I need a logo, I need a business name, I need to know everything about my business. But how can I create that thing which is like the next level when I haven't even figured out who I am? And this is why most businesses are so business owners, so disconnected from their business, because the ethos will change every week. The logo will change every week. Oh, I don't like these colors. I don't like this. I don't like that, because we haven't thought about where it's coming from. You are the source of your business. You are the heart of your business. So in order for us to get to the heart of your business, we need to figure out who you are at heart first.
That's something. We had a guy called Keith Smith on a couple of weeks ago, one of James's friends, and he's been in the industry for 30 years. And he basically said, if you're selling fitness, if that's all you've got, you're just selling fitness, you're knackered, because it's free. And that's exactly what you're saying. You've got, if you've got something unique, and like everyone talks about a unique selling point and all of this sort of stuff, but if that's you, then and you can identify it and know who you are, know yourself, then you know who you connect with. So you're saying, like, your services that you provide start with a conversation, not with a sales pitch.
Absolutely.
We spoke about this as well, didn't we? And they start with a conversation. So again, for people listening who are looking for coaches or looking for gyms to go to and all that, if you can have if you go somewhere and they have a conversation with you and work out exactly what you want and they fit with it, then you're going to do better than 100%. someone just saying, here's a few exercises and eat this many calories. Bosh, done.
Yeah. Look, I always use this example, right, where you walk into like Curry's or something like that, and you're looking for a TV, and there's two types of salesmen. There's one who'll come over to you, and you're looking at like a 32-inch TV, and he'll go like, "Oh, can I help you, sir?" Like, "Yeah, I'm just looking, thanks." And he'll go, "Oh, we've got this great 50-inch TV over here. It's got this, it's got that, it's got that." And he won't stop. And he keeps going. And what that makes me feel is, I feel really uncomfortable. I'm trying to leave now. I don't want to look at TVs anymore. I just want to leave. Then you got the other guy who comes over. He can see what you're looking at. And he'll go, "Oh, I can see you look at the 32 LG. Well, we've got one over here. It's the same spec, it's the same TV. It's £200 cheaper, right?" But before he even says all of that, he'll probably say something along the lines of, "Can I help you? I'm just looking, thanks." He'll go, "Okay, well, I'm just over here if you need a hand."
Yeah.
And he'll walk away and he'll leave you to it. And organically, I'm going to then go, right, I've had a look at this. I've had a look at that. I've got a few questions. Yeah. I'm going to go over to him and ask him a question. And I would, even if he was selling me a more expensive TV, I'd buy TV from him over the other guy any day of the week.
Yeah, totally.
And that's just a prime example of, it's about people. It's about connecting with people. It's about understanding, when someone's there looking at something and they tell you, "Hey, I'm just looking," let them look.
Yeah.
Right. And then guide them in the best way you feel that you can.
Yeah, and it's all right to walk away as well if you're not comfortable.
It's actually, you know what, it's, without going like deeper into it, like with the sales kind of process, and we talked about this at the beginning about kind of being desperate and stuff, like when you're there trying to sell someone into something, that energy isn't good. You know, when you're trying to get someone in, a bit like that conversation I said that I had with that woman, it's going to be a lot more enticing for her to hear me say, hey, let's have a conversation about what the next steps are for you, whether that is with me or potentially with someone else, than going, hey, yeah, come in and we'll have a chat about what we're going to do next. Because then she's like, oh, I haven't even decided I'm doing anything with you yet. Do you know what I mean? So
none of you lock your doors until they sign up then?
I'm outside, mate.
Mine are automatic lock. As soon as they walk in, it's
yeah.
I was thinking a couple of things that you've said so far. I've got a couple of questions, really. I know we've been speaking for a little bit already, but the first question, I'll try and do them in order, try and remember them, was when you first went as this young 16-year-old to this big kind of professional rugby league club, and they didn't address the basics and the fundamentals with you. Is that because there's a kind of a certain degree, and I think that relating it to training as well, I think there's kind of a degree of assumed knowledge that when you're involved in something a lot, that everyone knows this. So you're at this big professional club as a young guy who presumably you've been plucked and put there because someone saw natural kind of innate ability in you and not necessarily the greatest understanding of the game or the greatest technique or whatever. So do you think that's why those fundamentals were never really discussed with you, because they thought, well, you're at this place, you must know what you're doing?
I think so. And I think, you know, when we're talking about fundamentals, I'm going so like down to the deep foundations, like underneath the ground, not even surface level. I'm going below, because what I needed and what I got at the amateur clubs was understanding even how to beat a player, right? And I had this. I did it. I've always said this. I've always kind of, whatever I've done in life, I've done it backwards. I've always been able to do the stuff. Never really understood why. And then kind of through coaching, I've gone, that makes sense now. I do that anyway, but now I understand why I'm doing it, right? And that's kind of helped me as well through my coaching, because I do it backwards. I understand what it's like not to understand what it is you're doing or explain it. So when I understand it, when I go off and I'm doing these things and then I go and learn about it, I feel like the perspective that I have on it is completely different to most people. And that's what I bring to any coaching environment that I'm entered in, which is, you know, we might even go through a step-by-step approach to learning a particular movement or whatever it is. But I will stop at a certain point and go, wow, we've missed something here. And it's kind of like shifting the perspective to over here and going, we missed these little things. And it's the things between the transitions. So it's going like, well, this is stage 1, this is stage 2, this is stage 3, but it's not the stages themselves. They're being coached really well, but it's actually understanding that there's a transition, there's a space between those stages, and it's that isn't being taught sometimes. And so to be able to kind of I imagine it like, you know, you've got these like steps, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you go and zoom in to between steps 1 and 2, and there's another 10 steps. You know what I mean? You zoom in again, and there's another steps between those steps, and it's like it's going like really, really kind of like micro into those smaller steps and breaking it down for people, and that's when you get real deep understanding of what you're doing.
You
just made me, as a kid.
Yeah, you just made me think about, you know, the in Pumping Iron with Arnold and Franco Columbo, when they're learning their posing, and everyone knows the kind of the set poses that you do, but then they went to a ballet teacher to teach them to flow in between the poses and finesse. And you see like Arnold and Franco Columbo, where the ballet teacher knows, right, you've got to hit this pose, then this pose, but how do you get from this pose to this pose? Absolutely. You flow with finesse and you kind of move in gracefully, and that's how the posing really came out. No, that's fantastic. And then I had another question for you, Pom. Sorry, was when Pete was talking about how most people don't. First of all, he said it's difficult. Then he said it's not really difficult, but to dig deeply within yourself and to understand things. I think it's not necessarily difficult, but it's uncomfortable, isn't it? Or it's unusual for people to do, because we were talking before we press record, weren't we, about phones and constant distraction and constantly being distracted and entertained and needing constant feedback and stimulation. And when you actually do, like you did with Pete, and you were with him for like 4 hours, and half of that 4 hours was possibly just in silence and just thinking, and then just drawing the odd thing out. And I think it's very uncomfortable for most people, isn't it? So that's probably why people never really delve deeply into themselves, really, and just live a life of distraction, constantly just going from one thing to the next.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a really good point, actually, because something that I've been really, really aware of as I've gone through my coaching journey, and you start asking more questions. This year, actually, I set myself a task that in any coaching situation that I get myself into, I'm not going to give any opinions or give any kind of guidance in any way, shape, or form. But whenever I feel the need to say, oh, I've got an answer for this, I know what you should do next, is to stop and think, how can I get them to tell me that? Right. So it's, and I implore you guys to do it. Right. If you don't, I'm sure you guys already do something like this, but make it like maybe this week, kind of go away and go, right, don't tell anyone anything, and just ask another question, and ask another question, ask another question, ask another question. And there's two things happen. One, it's really, really difficult and uncomfortable for us as coaches, because you're there and you have to think. And what I found was that I used to have to, I was really uncomfortable in the silences. I've got very used to being comfortable in those silences, but I used to want to fill it, and just fill it and fill it and fill it, and just keep talking, keep talking, keep talking. And actually now I'm okay with going, give me a second. And actually thinking in real time.
I was about to say, it doesn't really work well on a podcast.
It doesn't. But I used to feel like that was a weakness, because it's like, if I don't know, I can't be a professional. I've got to know all the answers, and everything they ask, I've got to give an answer to, like this. And actually now I will stop and I'll think. And sometimes I'll sit there, I'll think for like as long as it takes for me to think of that next question and go, okay. And it's not always the right question. I'll just go, okay, let's try this one. And by asking those wrong questions, I'll go, no, that's not the question. This is the question. And it'll lead me to the right question that will kind of bring up the conversation that we need to get to. But the point here was that asking people questions is challenging. Like I said, that's from the coach's perspective. But when you're being asked a question that you don't know, there's a few things that happen here. And like with the guys, all of us guys here, if we start asking these questions to each other, we'd be okay with it, because we've been in this world for long enough. But when you ask someone who hasn't had any real coaching a question about themselves, about their business, and they don't really have an answer that they can just go like that and give you an answer for it, that's almost quite threatening. And they feel like they almost feel stupid, that they should know, but they don't know. So they start rambling about stuff, or they'll go, I don't know, and they'll panic. And what I kind of want from people, and what I try and explain to people is when I ask them a question is, first of all, and it comes back to that kind of breaking it down into micro steps, is going, okay, look, when I ask you a question, I'm not trying to trip you up. I want you to think. That doesn't mean you've got the answer or you know the answer. It's when I ask you the question, all I want you to do is at least think about the question and think about whether you know the answer. And sometimes you might come up with something. Other times you might go, oh, I don't know. But I'd rather them have a considered I don't know, rather than a panicked, oh, I don't know. You know, within a second, I haven't finished my question yet, and they're going into panic mode and go, I don't know this, I don't know, right? I just want them to take a second. There's no pressure. I'm asking you a question. Have a second, have two, take a couple of minutes if you need it, answer the question or think about it and give me your answer, whether it's I don't know or whatever. I'm okay with I don't know, as long as it's thought out, as long as you've taken a second to think about it. And that thought process of you going, oh, I don't know, I was thinking this and I was thinking that. Cool. It's almost like that, show your work, right? It's like let's think out loud, because whatever you're thinking, you're probably thinking, oh, he doesn't want to hear that, and that's not the right answer. And there is no right answer. It's just all the questions are supposed to do is evoke some kind of emotion, and that's what branding is at the end of the day. It's how you feel about something. I can set up a brand and go, right, this is my brand, this is what it represents, this is what it's about. But that's not what it's about, and that's not what it represents. Because there's 3 other people now looking at this brand. And when you go away and have a conversation about me, you'll have an opinion, and that opinion is my brand. So right now I have 3 brands, or 4 including mine, right? And I don't know which one's right. but the job is to try and get as close to authenticity as possible, so that when you guys walk away and you have a conversation about my brand, it's at least in and around the same kind of proximity. You know what I mean? You're not talking about completely separate things here, because you met Pom on a Wednesday and he was talking about this, and on Friday he was talking about that, and you meet up and go, oh, I didn't know that was Pom. To me, Pom was this, right? It's when you come together, you have this kind of common thread that go, oh yeah, that's what I got as well. And that's branding. It's whatever you think in your mind and in your heart about a thing or a person.
But this is where we've spoke about before, and it doesn't matter what you think about this or not. But like, when people want to do something, then they've got to work out why they want to do it and all of that. That's been a huge thing, hasn't it? And it doesn't matter what you think about that or what you don't think about that. It comes out of what you've just been saying is, you're talking to somebody. They sometimes want to answer your like you haven't always got the right questions, but you certainly haven't always got the right answers, because you're not them. They've got the answers within themselves somewhere, and it's your job as a coach, or it's you've got to try and draw those answers out. And that's the conversation, isn't it? But a conversation doesn't have to be back and forth, back and forth. It can be question and then sit and think for 10 minutes. And you're still, because you'll be having that conversation in your head, right? And like you say, the person might be sitting there going, well, this is what Pom wants to hear. That is a conversation, but that's not an authentic conversation, because you're trying to second guess another person rather than just being authentic and saying, right, this is the conversation I need to have, and the answer is in there somewhere. And getting people to realize that once you can do that, and not like kind of do it at will and stuff. And I spoke about this yesterday, because I've been speaking to someone on the DMs on Instagram who I know, who's like, I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing anymore, and I'm not sure whether I want to, and all of this. And I was like, well, just have a think about it, have a chat about it. And I had a chat with him about it and said a few things of what I go through that as well, and this is what I think about it, and what do you think? And then he came back like the next day with, I'm quite comfortable, actually. I've had a think about it. He started listening to the podcast from the beginning as well, which was really good. So it was, you already know the answer, don't you, within yourself? It's just exploring it. And like you say, most people are distracted and they don't even look for it. You just go, I don't know, and move on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to those questions as well, because people get panicked, it's our job to kind of just calm them down and reassure them that, look, you know the answers, right? Yeah. Just take your time. And what happens is we always go and we try and go for this complex thing that we think we don't know. So we're searching for this thing like externally. What was it? Something over here. Actually, it's all here, and it's really simple. And sometimes you're there going, you know this. No, that's too much. You're on step 3 or 4. Come down a step. All the answers are on level 1, right? That's how simple these questions are. But we skip it, and because we skip it in our minds, we skip it in our tasks. We skip it when we need to do the next business thing or the next fitness thing. We think, I want to lose weight. I need that program that's £3,000. Not, hold on, before I join that program, what can I do for myself? Maybe drink some water, maybe go for a walk. I can do this every day and have disproportionate results from just doing those things. And then when I'm doing those basic things, and now I'm getting a bit stuck, now I don't know what training to do. And I don't really know how to manage my diary. I don't know how to X, Y, and Z. that's when you can go, okay, cool, now I'm ready for a coach, you know. And we want to jump to the magic pill. And what happens is, the reason why people don't take action on those things, like the amount of people who will buy a program. I bought P90X once, right? It's still, I know where it is. It's in a box. The cellophane is still on the box.
Yeah.
I never even opened it, right? But I needed the thing because of great marketing. I was like, yeah, that's it. That's the answer.
And they always put those adverts on at like 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
2 o'clock in the morning.
I was like, 1 o'clock in the morning, right? There's a
and
deal
you're
on
sitting there after
only today.
drinks or feeling bad about yourself.
Wasn't there? Do you ever remember that guy Jeff Sokol?
Oh,
Yeah. He was one of those guys that it actually worked for, because didn't he buy a kettlebell in a moment where he was heavily depressed and he ended up turning his life around?
He bought Kettler size, I think.
Yeah.
He was in his living room after drinking whiskey, and he was ready to shoot himself, wasn't he, or something? And then he saw Kettler size video, and that's completely turned him around. James has met him.
I was going to say, it's really
James will have a picture with him. If he brings a book out, James will have a signed copy.
I've got a picture with him, yeah. No, what I was going to say was, it's really interesting that you mentioned him, because I mentioned him with a client this morning. And I said, we've got to reach out and get him on the podcast. But that's really amazing, that because he's putting a lot of stuff out at the moment, good stuff. And Jeff, is one of those people who got introduced to kettlebells through one of these information products on, network TV in America, and bought a DVD and I think he started with like a 4 kilo pink or orange little plastic kettlebell, and then he's gone into, what he does now. So that's fantastic.
He's another one who, like we've just been talking about, he lives well, it looks like he does on social media and everything, because I've not met him, James has, but he lives his authentic life, doesn't he? And that's what he does. And that's what he's done for the last, however long I've been following, for the last 8 or 9 years or whatever. That's what he's been doing. And he's been doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And he knows exactly why. And he knows himself. So that's like what we've just been talking about.
The third thing I was going to say from earlier, because I've been making notes, was a couple of times, like Pete's mentioned it a few times, in terms of, I think, when you're with different groups of people, you may behave slightly differently. And I know that, Pom, you've kind of mentioned it in the same way, where you ask someone a question and they give you the answer they want you to hear, because they're not confident in delving deep inside. I was listening to a Dan John podcast, I think it was only yesterday, and he said something about his mum, who used to say, it was either integrity or authenticity, I can't remember the word he used, but it's being the same person no matter who you're talking to, or no matter who you're with. So, you're the same person, whether you're talking with work colleagues, whether you're talking to, gym buddies, whether you're talking to, people you just bump into at the supermarket. You treat everyone the same, and you're the same person. And I think that's what we're talking about, isn't it? That's becoming that person. But to become that person, you have to really take the time to actually know who you are, don't you? And I think, like you say, it's difficult, isn't it, in this day and age to not be. We've had this conversation with, like you mentioned, with Dave Whitley, with various other people, and with Chet, actually, when we had Chet on the podcast, that you can quite easily be. I don't know, it's not a nice phrase, but you can be blown around like a fart in the wind. Do you know what I mean? And you can just kind of, just depending upon, and just depending upon who you're with and what the flavor of the day is and what the current, cause du jour is. And you can just kind of just be blown around and pick up what's popular.
If you think about it, James, if you think about it, like your values are like your anchor, right?
Yeah.
They anchor you to who you are. And to use your example, if I'm in a ship and I haven't got that anchor, then whichever way the wind blows, that's the way my ship's gonna go, isn't it? I haven't got any control over that. But as soon as I have those values, I can put those into the ground, and I can and go, look, this is who I am, right? And that's what it's about. It's getting that anchor first of all, getting that, come back to like who you are at heart. Yep. It's figuring that out, and what happens then is these become your principles, right? And everything we do, all these methods that are on top that are different, it's all based on principles. And come back to what you were saying. I say similar things, but I say it as like the way I do one thing is the way I do everything, right? So whether that's whether that's business, whether that's fitness, whether that's relationships, whether that's walking up the Wrekin, which is a local hill to me, which I've been doing, every day this year, or at least trying to. Like, the way I do that is the way I attack everything, and you won't see me going hell for leather at anything, because I wouldn't do that in my business. I certainly wouldn't do that in my training. So why would I do that in anything else? And what that does is it just reminds you, because sometimes you get lost. There's things that like us guys, we know training, right? We know business. So there's certain things that we can go, okay, cool. Like, that's who I am. And I can do those things. Sometimes what happens is that when it comes to our personal lives, our relationships, they can start going off in other directions. And we're so confused, we don't know why. But actually, when you have those values and you have that anchor, you can go, well, hold on, why is that happening? Because that's not who I am. I'm now behaving differently to who I am. And when you start realizing these things, you can go, well, oh, wow, this is just the same as training. I take one step at a time in training, but my relationship, I'm trying to jump hurdles, right? How about I just take it down a notch and just take that one step at a time, and everything becomes really, really simple and really easy. And that's something that I would say that it has been a massive thing for me, is that I used to overthink things so much that I'd make it super complicated. What I'm learning to do now is to take away all the crap and strip it all back and go, what are the principles of this? What's the most important thing of this? And take that forward, and its simplicity. Do you know what I mean? Just take the next step. And so, like, at the beginning of the year, I gave myself a challenge to walk this local hill called the Wrekin. And I wanted to do it. And I just thought I'd do it every now and again. And it's been great. It's a great kind of, just gives you, you get some space, you get some activity in. It's a great view. It's just everything about it. You never do it and feel like crap, right? You always feel good after doing it. So I'm like, I just want to do it more often. So I put a post out just saying, I want to do this more often. If anyone's interested, give me a shout. I'll add you to a group. And after the first day, I had like 17, 18 people. I think there's like 60 odd people in the group now. And the goal was to do it, in my head, the goal was to do it 3 times a week. I set the bar super, super low, something really, really manageable. And I've now done it 6 or 7 times a week. And I believe we're on day 90 today. Or is it day 91? It's 90 or 91 today. I can't quite remember. And I was ill last week, so I missed, I only did it 4 times last week, which still hits my goal. And that's the thing. Yeah. Whenever I was down for like 3 days, I was down and out, but I still managed to get up the Wrekin beforehand. I went up during my kind of illness because I just needed to get out of the house. So I did a walk. I did 2 more when I felt a little bit better. I still managed 4 at my lowest. All right. So I'm still winning. I'm still bonused because 3 is my goal, but I did 4. Right. But that's because I set the bar low. I hit that bar, but that kind of give me the drive to go, actually, I can do it again tomorrow. I want to do it again tomorrow. Sometimes I did doubles. I do it in the morning. And then someone would say, oh, are you going tonight? I'm like, I wasn't, but yeah, come on, let's go up. Right. So out of, I think, 90 days, I think I'm on before this week, I was 1 day behind. So I would have been like 80, 89 out of 90 days. I'm probably sitting at about 96, 97. But by the time I get to day 100, I'll be 100 for 100.
Can I ask you a question about this?
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Can I ask you a question about this?
1 second. Here's me. Okay, give me a second. Yeah, sorry, mate.
Have you got time? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go.
Yeah. So, has anyone said to you that's really boring because you're doing the same walk every day, right? And I'm asking this because people say this to me because I do like the same walks with the dog. I do the skyline, and there's like one like out the other side of my house, and I'm pointing that way. It's probably that way, but anyway, and they're like, "Why do you do the same walks all the time?" And I'm like, "Well, because otherwise I have to think about routes and other places to go, which takes up like half an hour when I could be out walking, and it looks different every day anyway because it's all the colors are changing now, and then like we spoke about this for going back to the branding thing, all my colors are like green and like a darkish green and orange and that, because I like autumn and I like the autumn colors when everything changes then and stuff like that. So, and it's not too hot because I'm from Newcastle and I can't handle the heat. So autumn's the perfect time of year. But, you know, that sort of thing. So, well, I guess what I'm asking, has anyone said that? And that doesn't really matter, is like, how different is it every day? Even though it's the same walk, how different is it every day?
I've never experienced the same thing twice.
Exactly. Yes.
Out of, like I said, out of 86, 87 walks this year, and even before that, it's just more. It's more in my peripheral now that it's right there. I experience it every day, and I go, "Wow, this is different." You know, there's loads. I've learned so much doing these walks. Not just about me, about other people as well. You know, but the main thing that I've learned is that I've set. I never understood this. What I'm realizing about everything that I do, even with my fitness, with the business, everything. What I'm actually after isn't the things I think I'm after. I'm after rhythm.
Yeah.
What it gives me is rhythm. I wake up and so many different rhythms, you know, circadian rhythm, because I'm waking up with the sun, going to sleep with the moon, because I'm exhausting myself throughout the day. I'm getting up early. I'm getting out for the walk. I'm getting that sun, you know, being like powered like Superman, and that gives me enough energy that I don't need like coffee throughout the day. I don't get those midday slumps like I used to. I used to feel like having a nap about 1, 2 o'clock. Don't get that anymore. But like I find myself now, even like when I lie in bed, I wake up. All I do is I pull the covers over, I swing my legs out of bed, put my trainers on, have a glass of water. I don't brush my teeth or anything, right? I just put my clothes on and I'm out the door.
Glad you said put your clothes on, because you said I put my trainers on and I thought you were going to say, whoa. What kind of a club is this?
But like, I just take any barriers away. And that was early on. I took any barriers away that would get in my way, just to get out there, because it was horrible. When I first started, obviously, first of Jan, the weather was horrendous. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to go out, but it was a thing that I said, you know, and the only reason I went to start was because I set this group and I said, hey guys, I'm doing a walk at 7 a.m. And I didn't check if someone had said they're coming or not, because that would mean if they're not, I've got a way out, so I don't have to go. So I wouldn't even check. I would just rock up. And to date, I think I've only done one walk on my own. And that was the one where I decided to do it at 5:30 in the morning, and no one turned up for some reason. But yeah, there's always been at least one person on these walks. And
so how long does this walk take you every day? Just quick, because I've got no idea about the wrecking.
So it's like I said, it's a local hill. It takes about 30 to 40 minutes at a nice steady pace. Next time you're down, James, I'll take you up. I think you'll enjoy it. Yeah, so it's about, I've done it in like 20 now, just walking, and just keeping it at like a really hard pace. But that's because I've done it just nice and steady for so many days. I thought, oh, you know what, I'm going to test it today. And I won't test it again for another, I don't know, 3-4 months probably, if I even do test it, because there's no point. I've got no aspirations to do it any faster. It's just the fact of doing it. And yeah, so, and then it's about, all in all, with other people, it probably takes about an hour. Yeah. And then sometimes what you can do is you can go over the top and down the back and do a slightly longer route, and that'll take about an hour and a half. But there's loads of routes, so you can make it last as long or as little as you want. But the main track is, I would say, 30 minutes up and then a nice amble down, 30 minutes down. So it's an hour all in.
Yeah, so it's a nice kind of average of an hour a day out of your day just to go and that sounds lovely. Yeah.
Oh, mate, it's brilliant. And like I said, I mean, the view every single time. Like this morning, for instance. I mean, last night it snowed. This morning it was freezing cold, but the view today was absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. And just that just sets you up for the day. You know, it's a perfect setup for the day. And you get everything you need. You get fresh air, you get the sunlight, you've done a lot of activity. And it is, you know, there's some steep parts to it. So it's not just a stroll. There are some steep bits that make you go, oh, you know, this is quite taxing. And so when Pete messaged me last week, it was actually the first time I said it, Pete.
I know.
I didn't say it, I typed it. And he was like, "Oh, great." And I was telling him about this. I was like, yeah, I'm doing this thing every day. It's brilliant. And he was like, "All you need now is a spaniel." And I was like, "Yeah, that's next on the list." And I said, and then I said this thing that I've been thinking in my head for a few weeks. I hadn't really said it out loud. And the first time I actually shared it with anyone was with Pete. And it's that I'm thinking about doing like, they call it Everesting, right? So Everesting the Wrekin, which is doing the Wrekin for the as many times as it needs until you get the height of Everest, which in this case is 37 times. And so, yeah, so that'll, if it takes an hour, nice steady walk, it's going to be up and down. It's going to be 37 hours because there's going to be like non-stop. It's going to be without sleep and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of training is going to go in. This is going to be, I'm planning this for next year. So yeah, so it's so like I said, it's a bit of a secret only because I didn't want to put pressure on myself, but it's kind of out now, isn't it? So I've got to do it.
Oh, that's amazing. That's absolutely fantastic. And if you can get, like some of the guys and girls who have been walking with you to date, and maybe even if they don't want to do the whole thing, but they can join you for a couple of hours throughout that 37 hours.
What the plan was to kind of like have a few slots.
Yeah.
You can kind of just like sign up for a couple of slots, and just maybe have like 3 people at a time and have that throughout.
Because then you'll be having different conversations the whole time. You'll be meeting different people. Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, so at the moment it's just that kind of thinking process. I'm just kind of going, okay, cool. You only do it once and you get down to the bottom and you go, right, that's one of 37. Oh God.
Through experience of doing stuff like this, when you're doing it once, you're going to be tired at the end. If you say, right, I'm going to do it 3 times, twice will be easy. The third one will be tiring. If you say I'm going to do it 5 times, you'll do it 4 times, no problem. The 5th one will be tiring. It's already in your head how many you're going to do, isn't it? So if you're saying I'm doing 37 of these, you'll do 10 of them, no problem. I'm not saying you'll get to 36 and then the 37th one will be tiring, because it'll be horrible after a certain amount of time. But you get second wins, you get when the sun goes down, you get tired because your body's circadian rhythms, like you said earlier, your body just wants to go to sleep. But when the sun comes up again in the morning, you get a second wind, all of that. So yeah, it'll be interesting actually for you doing it up and down the same thing as well, because that's mentally if you're going from A to B, I spoke about this the other week. That's I'm not saying it's easier, but you've just got to get somewhere. Whereas this is like, it's mentally challenging because it'll be the same thing over and over and over again. So
I did some intervals yesterday, and I'm building up on my intervals. And I was on a minute on, minute off on the air bike at a certain pace, which is it's a tough pace for a minute, but you get a minute rest, so it's enough recovery. But I'm up to 24, and just starting that process is the hardest bit, because when you do 1 and you go, right, that's 1 of 24, then you can see the numbers. And you feel exhausted at like 5, and you look, you go, oh my God, is that it? And so it's going to be that. I'm training myself for that already, because it's going to be this more than my legs or anything else. It's going to be the head game that's going to get me through that.
I think it's really interesting because what Pete asked when he said, has anyone asked you if you get bored or if it's boring? I was just thinking actually the way when you were saying that, when you were talking about your experience of doing it every day and with different people, and I think a lot of people use the again, it might be that we're all hyperstimulated and overstimulated all the time nowadays, but I think a lot of people use I'm going to use the term excuse of, I find it boring, or I find exercise boring, or I get bored, as a very easy get out from actually doing things. Because I can honestly say that as an adult, I don't think I've ever been bored. I was just trying to think actually if I've been bored, and I don't think I've ever been bored. I don't think I get bored, because I've always got stuff to do, and I'm always doing stuff, and I'm always thinking about stuff, or I'm reading or whatever. And like you say, walking up and down the same hill 37 times, it's very easy to say, oh, I couldn't do that, it'd be too boring for me. Or even just when we train, like the three of us guys do stuff with Paul McElroy, and it's like today I've had to do, 10 sets of deadlifts, 10 sets of squats, 10 sets of bench press. People, and it's just been the same exercises for the last 21 weeks, but people might say, oh, that's too boring. But it's not actually that it's boring. It's probably that you just don't want to do it. You know what I mean? In some ways, I think you have to kind of, and you have to challenge yourself. Plus, I'm reading Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning about being in Auschwitz, and what his mind had to do when you're in a concentration camp. And it's about what you do with your mind to make life not boring, isn't it? I mean,
I think people don't quite, especially when it comes to health and fitness. And I think in business as well, in some respects, especially nowadays, because you can get anything with a click of a finger. If you want food, you just pop to the shop and there it is, ready made.
You can see, just go,
got it.
Bring me my food.
Exactly. And what people, we're being sold these 12-week programs and stuff, that are going to get these results. But the problem with these programs is that 12 weeks isn't enough to learn anything, right? Yes, you'll do something on day one, and then you'll progress on day two, and progress and progress and progress. But progression is like in a narrow chamber like this. But learning happens when it's stretched out, when you do those things over and over and over and over and over again. And that's the boring part of doing something over and over again, like the same thing over and over and over, even saying it over and over. I'm getting bored of saying it, right? It's like because it's that monotonous. It's just, but that's the thing. To be good at anything, you have to practice it day in, day out until you can do it without thinking, and you're autonomous, right? And that's what movement is. And what we're trying to do when it comes to health training is and strength training, all these kind of things, is to get people to practice these movements so much that when they are in real life, they don't have to think about going, oh, I need to brace this and do this. And they just do it because that's just how you move as a human, right? And so because there's so many things about, do this, and it's variety, and day one we'll do this, and day two we'll do this, and we'll get it done really, really quickly. Like people want those quick results. But what happens is that they haven't learned anything. So they might get a result of some sort, but it's lost as soon as they stop because they haven't actually learned anything. And this is why I feel like it's, this is about learning. And when we come into any kind of fitness endeavor, it's not about what do I need to do to get to X. It's what do I need to learn? What do I need to get good at to be able to make that thing more manageable? So I want to get good at walking a lot, right? I want to get good at mentally going through these challenges of these kind of endurance-based things. So I'm not an endurance athlete. I'm a sprinter, right? My thing ends in 10 seconds. That's it. That's why I go all out. That's why I'm good at strength, because it's like one lift, bosh, done, I'm out of here. But if I had to do that 100 times, that's challenging, right? I don't do cardio. I don't with music. I don't walk up the Wrekin with anything in my. People go, oh yeah, I get out there on the hill and I put my my headphones in and listen to a podcast or something like that. I don't do that because that's distraction. I'm not learning to be with myself and understand and feel that inner voice saying, you can't do this. Just stop. Just stop. It's too hard. You can't do another one. And in my head, I read a book called Endure, and it was about. Have you read it? It's about I can't even remember who it's by now. It was a long time ago. It was about kind of breaking the 4-minute barrier, the mile and stuff like that, and how no one had ever done it. As soon as one person did it, like everyone started to do it. And it's that kind of mental block of, because you've never done it before and you get tired, you just stop and you go, oh, this is impossible. And someone does it, you go, oh, it is possible. So you just do it. And part of that is that inner voice going, right, I'm running, my legs are going, okay? And now I say to myself, oh, I'm tired. But hold on, my legs are still moving, right? And I started doing this when I was reading this book. I remember doing some like mile runs and 3-4 mile runs. I remember getting to that point that I'd normally get to, and I'd say I'm tired, and I'd slow down, or I'd stop and walk, and then I'd start running again. And I thought, hold on, your legs are still moving, so you're not actually tired yet, are you? And I literally kept saying this in my head where every time I said I'm tired, I'd go, well, you're not though, because your leg's still moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're tired. Yeah, but you're not though, because your legs are still moving. And I kept doing that. And I found myself doing another 3-4 laps before I had the need to actually stop, because I physically couldn't run anymore. Right. And so being with yourself, being in your own mind, doing these endurance events and you know, and walking wherever you're walking, like, don't do it with anything in your ears. When you're doing cardio, don't do it with things in your ears, because you're not learning anything. You're finding this ways to get through it. But when you come up to a challenge, you're not going to be able to get through it because, oh, where's my music? Right? It's like training with straps. Yeah. It's like, let's train your grip. If your grip is your weakest point in a deadlift, well, let's train that. Let's train the deadlift at the point at which it's your arms that give out and not your glutes or your lower back or your hamstrings, and get that strong so that your grip catches up with, you know, all these big muscles. And now we're on now we actually know what true strength you have, right? And I think it's just being, again, all of this comes down to awareness of yourself, but you have to listen. You've got to listen to that inner voice. You've got to listen to your body. You got to listen to these things that are happening and not ignore them and not just go, oh, forget that. It's actually listen to it and go, what are you saying? What are you telling me?
I think that like you said, it's about learning. And I think that really it's the way you explained it there, and what was going through my head is that it's about learning about yourself, isn't it? That's what it's about. It's not even necessarily learning a particular skill or a particular technique or a particular method. It's about learning about yourself. And it's only when you have to do something that you know, that's why I think this easy way out of, I find it boring, you know. It's like anything, people who say, oh, don't read, I find it boring, I get distracted, you know, or whatever it is, you know, it's actually being alone with yourself for a long period of time and actually getting to really know what you're made of, really. And that builds resilience.
It's
I love the not having the headphones whenever I walk or run or do anything like that. I just like going outside. I don't want headphones in my ear. I want to be able to hear my surroundings. I want to be able to.
You're breathing as well, right?
One with my own.
I do it based on my breathing.
Yeah.
So when I walk up the Wrekin now, I close my mouth and I try and do it. I mean, when there's other people, we're talking and stuff, but on my own, nasal breathing, and I can gauge whether I'm going too fast if I feel the need to open my mouth. So I can regulate my speed and my pace to be able. And the goal is, can I keep my mouth closed? And if I've got headphones in, I can't. There's too much going on. There's too much. Literally, there's too much noise. Right. So
I think this all circles back round to, because we're going to have to end in a minute, I reckon, because we've been going for bloody ages. But I mean, it's great. Honestly, there's so many things coming up with this, not do, like, because I don't use headphones and all that sort of stuff when I go out walking and everything. And I'm like similar to you. I do the same things over and over again and all of that, and it's very different. But I'm not constantly thinking as I walk around as well. Sometimes I'm just looking around and thinking, this is nice. This is nice. Today's lovely. Look at that. The view over there is lovely and blah, blah. Or watching him rolling around on the floor being stupid. But I think it goes back to the whole coaching thing and thinking deeply about yourself and what have you. And the more you can do that, and the more you are able to do that, and the more you've done it, the simpler things become. Because like you say, you take it from all these things down to your core values, which you can anchor in the ground and then say, is how I'm living my life and what I'm doing, is it in line with that? Or is it now moving away from it and being drifted away? So I can either bring it back or I need to change my values. And all of this goes with doing these things over and over again, right? So like you say, if you're walking up and down the same thing, like James said, people can use it as an excuse or procrastination, say, to go, I'm going to go for a walk, but I'm going to find a new route. And then you end up not going, like I say, or, you know, or you do go, but it takes up more of your time. And then you go, well, I haven't got time to do that. It takes bloody ages. It's like, well, just do the same one then. So, and then when you can do that, you've thought deeply enough to be able to do it without any distraction as well. So it all fits together. It's amazing how it all fits together.
And another point on that is that thinking deeply thing. I think thinking deeply comes off the back of not thinking as well.
Yep.
Like sometimes the thoughts that we think actually get in the way of the true thoughts that are there.
Yeah.
Right. And actually being out on a walk without the headphones, without, just being with yourself. And, those points where you're not thinking, you are thinking, right? But it's the thoughts that you need. That's the deeper stuff that's coming out. And I always find that when I'm on my own, driving's a great one, because when I'm driving long distances, that's when I have these great ideas. I'm like, oh, God. And sometimes I'll pull over and I'll write something down, or I'll record a voice note or something, because that's when you're not thinking, when you haven't got the stresses of the work. That's flow, isn't it? That's what everyone's after, is that flow. The flow comes from like taking the steps and getting out there and doing it. And it's the same with exercise, same with training. A lot of people get stuck on, say a kettlebell swing. People won't even they'll do one and they'll go, oh, that was wrong, and put it down. Like, I want you to get it wrong. Get it wrong a gazillion times. Because when you get it right, only then will you know that you've got it right, because you felt how it feels to get it wrong, right?
Yeah.
But people are scared to get things wrong. They're scared to make mistakes in business. Oh, I can't put this out because it doesn't really reflect who I am. It's okay. It's the best version we've got so far. So put that out, and then you'll rewrite it, and you'll do it again, and it'll be better, and it'll be better. And it comes back to that whole, like, version 1 is better than version none, right? So it's whatever it is, just take the step, take the imperfect step. Whether it's, I don't know what to do with this business. Well, just start, right? Just start, do something, have some conversations, right? I don't know what to do with training. Just start, get out and walk. Again, have some conversations, because they all lead to something, right? And so it's motion, it's that activity, it's getting moving is the key. And yes, I'm talking about taking a step back and figuring out purpose and figuring out values and vision, and your voice and all this kind of stuff that I work with people on. Absolutely. But those things come from having done something in the first place. You've got to be moving to be able to figure those things out. You can't do it stationary. Because if you haven't done something, you've never, so as an example, if I'm working with, like when me and you work together, Pete, if you hadn't had any clients and you hadn't done any work already, it'd be a lot more challenging to figure those things out, because you've never been in a coach environment. But if you just get going with something and coach someone and don't know what you're doing and figure it out as you go through, we can start figuring some stuff out. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Man, right. We're going to have to wrap up the thing, but Pom, it's been a pleasure as always. Honestly, that was great. We could go, we'll do this with everybody. So we could go on about this all for a week. We could just sit and talk for a week and have a kip here and there. But no, that is brilliant. Right. We've got we didn't ask Kelly this last week, but we've got a question. I don't usually like it when podcasts do this. We've got a question that we ask the guest every week. The same question, but this is slightly different. It's about book recommendations. So can you recommend 2 or 3 books? You've already recommended Endure. So the reason why we do this is because we get asked a lot of questions from listeners saying, what books were mentioned in that podcast, blah, 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 blah. So, and then people have asked we've got a Facebook group as well. If you're not in it, there'll be a link to it in here. But people ask, what books can you recommend to help with all of this stuff? And what podcasts do you listen to help with all this stuff, apart from this one, obviously? So yeah, have you got 2 or 3 book recommendations that you would suggest?
Yeah, so obviously I mentioned Endure for that particular thing that we talked about. Second one, I would say, I'm trying to think of the book that has had a massive impact.
Watership Down had a massive impact on me, if that helps, but in the wrong way.
Anything by Bernadette Jiwa.
Bernadette. Yes, I know who you mean.
Yeah, I think they're brilliant. And when it comes to simplicity, you can't get them.
I've got a few of those, so I'll be able to put those in the group.
Literally anything by her. And what was it? I just had another one in my head and it's just gone. One that I talk about a lot. You put me on the spot there.
Why don't we go to Paul to give a final thought, or if he's got any final things to say, and then we'll come back to you, Pom.
Yeah, no worries.
Paul?
Yes. So if you saw me coming in and out, it's just mainly because of my internet being so awful. I had to turn the video off in order to hear. But that's why I'm in and out. Yeah, no, fantastic. I mean, it's so interesting to hear about this kind of process. And like I say, it's just putting some language around it, really. It's often, we just try and make these things intuitive. We pass these things from parents down to children or whatever. There's never any kind of structure to it. And sometimes we need a guide, and just like in any endeavor, the kind of voyage of self-discovery often works best when there's someone who's laying down the path, and that can give us confidence. I mean, like you say, that when you're a kid, you can get things wrong and there's no consequence, and that's why they pick up things so quickly. Whereas there's huge amounts of consequences when we get older, or we think they are, the perceived consequences about how we think other people are going to react. And if we can kind of get rid of those consequences, then I think it gives us a lot more freedom to make faster progress. And then the final thing is there was a great little message on our Facebook page that basically said, I didn't know what you guys looked at, but now I think I'm going to I'm going to go back to listening on audio.
Okay, yeah, I saw that. I don't know who it was from, but I did see it, and I think I commented or something. Or no, that's good. Pom's gone. Is he going to come back on?
Is he gone? Is that enough?
I hope so. Carry on, James. What about your final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I just thought it was great. It's always good to catch up with Pom. I've known him like you, probably, I don't know, 7-8 years, something like that. Met at some event back in the past, and it's been it's just lovely to catch up with him, and hopefully next time I go up to near him, which will probably be October, we might get to walk the Wrecking or the Wrekin or whatever it's called together, which would be great. He's coming back in now.
He is, yeah.
Hi guys.
And, hello, Pom. You're right. And and we'll go back to Pom now if he's got one more book recommendation.
Hey guys, sorry, battery died.
Ran out of battery.
Yeah, the last book was Essentialism.
Okay.
Essentialism. Okay.
Essentialism. Yeah. So something that I've been doing is we talk about simplicity. One of the things that I've been doing a lot of recently is taking away all the clutter from my life. So clothes and all sorts of things. So I've chucked out loads of stuff, but it went on a cycle of kind of, when you have like a big pile of clothes and you go, right, chuck that, keep that, chuck that, keep that, keep. And by the time you look at it, you go, my keep pile's like this and my chuck pile's like this.
Yeah.
But I go through a few cycles of that, and now I've kind of got like this now. And so it started with clothes. I've started to go to things, things we collect that have like sentimental meaning and stuff. But to me, like sentiment is here, and so I'm really learning that the things that kind of stop us from moving forward and making life decisions is the stuff that is our baggage. And we can talk about baggage, like we can talk about it in so many different ways, but like the actual stuff we have is just as powerful as the baggage that we have in our hearts and in our heads. So the book is very, very simple, obviously, and you can transfer it over anything. And massive impact over the past couple of years in my life, for sure.
Definitely. That's cool. No, thanks for that, Pom. And also, if people want to find you, where can they find you? Like social media? You haven't got a website, you said.
Yeah,
so you can't do that.
Facebook is Pom Tutt.
Yeah.
And Instagram is Pom Tutt, also POMTUTT.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Simple as that. You see, that's
simple as that.
This is living with authenticity, right? Like most people, you'll ask them and they go, I'm here, I'm all over this. And you're like, right, Facebook, Instagram, done. Wallop, there you go. If you want a conversation, that's where we go. So yeah. So no, thanks for that, Pom. That was great. So thanks to you guys as well, our listeners. Obviously, without you, we would do this, but we wouldn't be talking to anybody, would we? So thanks for listening. If you want to Like, share, tell your friends about this episode or any previous episodes. Like I said, I mentioned somebody earlier who started listening from the very beginning, and he's already said he's had a lot of insights into kind of self-development and his own training and all of that sort of stuff. So, we have got this is what episode 85 was said. So we've got a long back catalogue of amazing guests. So yeah, go back and listen to all of those as well. Share with your friends if you think it'll help anybody. Comment to us on Facebook, on the page, or in the group, which you can go into. All the book recommendations will be in there as well. Yes, thanks for listening. We appreciate you all, and we'll be back next week with somebody or not. I don't even know if we've got anyone lined up for next week. But there you go. I'm not as organized as James, but that's me. That's my authentic self. Anyway, James, thanks for coming. Paul, thanks for coming. Pom, great to see you again.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye, Pom. See you later. Cheers,
See you
mate.
later, guys.
Bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Oddity.